Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? We're waiting for a few more people to join in, but those who are already in attendance, if you could just drop in which chapter you're with so we can see who's all here this morning, which chapter you're representing. Hello, DC. I see DC in the chat. Houston is in the chat. We have Central Virginia chapter that is joining in. Good morning as you guys are joining in. If you can drop in the inbox which chapter you're affiliated with, and we're going to get started in just a second. Hello, Miss Bird. I see you. Alexandria is in the house. North Virginia. Miss Phyllis, how are you doing this morning?
Doing you.
Which area are you representing today? Are you in DC or are you in Little Rock?
I'm in DC, but I always represent Little Rock wherever I go.
Yes, ma'am. And I want to shout out the North Central Texas chapter, which I am affiliated with out of Dallas, Texas. My name is Shenequa. I am the marketing and public relations specialist with the city of Dallas. I am just honored to be here this morning to celebrate a true queen, Miss Phyllis Dickerson. She is phenomenal. I know you guys are going to enjoy this session, and I'm just honored that NFBPA thought of me to moderate this session. So, Miss Dickerson, we're going to get started. I see people are coming in, and as you come in, please drop which chapter you're representing today. We are getting ready to interview a true woman that deserves all of the accolades today, Miss Phyllis Dickerson. Miss Dickerson, if you don't know who she is, you're about to find out. She is the CEO of the African American Mayor Association. She has worked for the not Biden, I'm sorry, the Clinton, both Clinton and the Obama administration as the advanced staffer. Let me pull up this resume so I don't miss everything Miss Dickerson has done. She has also served as the regional mayor director for the Mike Bloomberg's 2020 presidential campaign. She was the first woman ever. Okay, she was the first woman ever appointed to be the chief of staff to the mayor of Little Rock, Arkansas, to Mayor Stolas. She is also the CEO and president of Red Inc. She has served on numerous boards of the National Forum for Black Public Administration. She is a member of the Little Rock alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She also advocates for the children who suffer with sickle cell anemia. She holds a master's degree in human resource development from Webster University, as well as a bachelor of business administration degree of business management from the University of Central Arkansas. And I mean, she's just overall, in the words of my AD, Miss Renee Johnson, she's just fabulous. Okay, she is fabulous, and I am honored to interview her today. So everyone, please welcome Miss Phyllis Dickerson, and to our platform this morning. And we're just gonna start off, and you just take us from the beginning. Did you, a young lady attending the University of Arkansas, Central Arkansas, okay? Did you ever think that you would land into this type of leadership role?
No, I didn't. My career path was a lot different than most people that ever even worked in municipal government. So after leaving college, I actually um, did retail for the first 20 years. And so I worked in fashion. So I worked for Gap Corporation. I used to open Gap and Old Navy stores across the US. I worked for Neiman Marcus and companies like that. And so I never had an inkling to ever work in government because I actually came from a legacy of government. My mom actually worked in local, state, and county government. Many of you, the people on here are too young to know this, but ask your parents about the government cheese program. My mother oversaw that program. She oversaw the energy assistance program, the weatherization program, summer jobs program, and things like that, that were programs in either local, county, or city government, state government, excuse me.
Okay, okay. So you just come from a a, um, a family full of successful Black women who are true queens who have paved the way for you to be where you are now. So that is awesome. So, like I mentioned, by reading your bio, you have served as the advanced staffer for both the Clinton and Obama administration. Okay. And then you were the original regional mayor director for Mike Bloomberg's 2020 presidential campaign. What do you think are the most important qualities in being a leader, in being a successful leader?
So everybody laughs at me. All my friends laugh at me because I walk around with 3 cell phones, but your Rolodex speaks to power. So who you have access to and who has access to you speaks to your real validity and power, no matter whether you work in the public sector or private sector. And so the number one thing I tell people is who's in your Rolodex, and if you call them, will they pick up the phone? And so that is so important. I tell people, don't treat people as disposable commodity. Like, I don't care if it's the public works director, like, have their cell number. Ask people, do you mind sharing your cell number? Because you never know when you're going to need that person. And so keep your Rolodex tight, and opportunities will present themselves. You don't have to figure it all out while you're at this age and young. When I came to city government, I didn't come as a regular city employee. I actually came to do a limited services contract to plan the 50th anniversary of the Little Rock Nine. But in planning it, they gave me an 18-month contract to plan it. When I walked in, Mayor Daley was the mayor. By the time the anniversary came around, Mayor Stola was the mayor, and he saw my work for the 50th anniversary, and he asked me to be his chief of staff. I didn't even know I could be a chief of staff. Like, literally, I was like some of you guys, I was the special events coordinator for the city. And so I went from special events coordinator to special events and programs coordinator, the city manager. Many of you have met Bruce Moore in Little Rock. He's been around NFBPA for a long time. My first NFBPA meeting, Bruce took me to in January 2005 and 2006, actually, in Tallahassee, Florida. And he wanted me to serve on a committee that he was supposed to be chairing. And I was like, this is not my skill set. I don't do strategy. So it was the strategic planning committee for NFBPA. And I was still the coordinator for the 50th anniversary. And then I rolled over to the CPEC meeting by accident just to see what they were talking about, because I like the name Conference Planning Evaluation Committee. And that's where my skill set was. I, figured out the members on that committee. Back then, many years ago, it was the elite committee to be on at NFBPA. They planned all the logistics around the organization. And I found my niche, and they gave me a bone. They asked me to come up with the speaker for the ethics panel. And I scared everybody. I came up with Kwame Kilpatrick. And at that time, he was the mayor of Detroit and being indicted. And of course, the old heads cussed me out, and they were like, oh, why that? Are you going to get Kwame to be the speaker? And I said, who better to tell you what not to do? And so the session was jam-packed. At that time, people like Rashad Young, they were brand new city managers or assistant city managers. Snipes was an assistant city manager a long time ago, right? And so they learned so much from that session. Harry, the former county manager in Mecklenburg, moderated the conversation, and everybody was in awe when it was done. So don't be scared to push the envelope and think outside the box. I learned from Mike Bloomberg, there is no box. You just think. And so don't put yourself in or out of a box, just think. And the other thing I learned from Mike is, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? And so do that thing and then find the money to match up with it.
That's good. That's real good because, in government, they always want to try to limit what you could do. Oh no, that's not the process. But it sounds like you pushed the envelope, and so in pushing the envelope, that brings me to my next question of how were you you broke some barriers, and how have you continued to break barriers being a woman of color, being in such powerful positions? How have you utilized your positions to break those barriers to bring in more African American women?
So one of the things I'll tell you when you talk about, in city government, the budget's always tight, right? And so when I came to to plan the 50th anniversary of the Little Rock Nine, I remember them telling me I had to raise the money for the event. I was like, okay. So the first day I showed up to work, the media showed up and they said, well, Phyllis, how much are you planning to spend for this 50th anniversary? And I said $500,000 for this week long of activities. And so one of the city council members called me and she said, what are you going to spend $500,000 on? And I said, nothing if I don't raise it. She never called me back. So again, don't be scared to push the envelope. As it relates to others, I tell people, prepare yourself to be at the table. And then when you're at the table, don't be scared to speak up. Even if you feel uncomfortable doing it, a lot of times in city government, especially when you get to director or city manager or assistant city manager level, it's men at the table, right? And little things will happen, you guys, that especially for the women that are on the call. I remember the first meeting I was in City Hall, Bruce actually asked me, are we having coffee? That's as if I was supposed to go get the coffee. I said, I don't know, I don't drink coffee. Are you having coffee? And so don't let people put you in those, what I call female stereotypical position where you feel like you got to go make the copies, you got to go get the coffee. I never got my mayor coffee. He knew to go get his own coffee. So, and then when you walk in the room, I tell people there are little things you don't do. You don't sit, like if somebody has a couch and two chairs, you sit level with them. Don't sit in the couch as a woman because it sinks you down. It makes you look lower than them. Don't walk in with a journal, like when you're taking notes. A lot of times we walk in with journals that have flowers on it. Don't do that. Keep it real generic and to the point. Carla Harris spoke at NFBPA one time and she said she wasn't getting promoted because they said they didn't think she was tough enough. So she said, I started walking tough, talking tough, drinking tough, cussing tough. She was like, and it was so funny the way she said it, but she was very serious about it and very intentional. And so at the end, people would go to her for their presentations to say, let's go get Carla to critique it because she's really tough. So she changed that narrative just that quick.
That's an interesting point that we talked about. I know I'm about to kind of go off the script here because we kind of talked about a few things, but when you mention those gender roles, how people view women in the workplace, and how you mentioned don't go in with your journal or sit on a couch because that makes you look lower than. And so I know I recently, not too long ago, had a discussion with a few friends of mine about women wanting to know what is that balance of having to use your feminine energy and not be labeled as, oh, well, she's just has that masculinity, or she's not strong enough, she's not capable, she's supposed to be a mother at home. You can't have both. You can't, but you can, because I know my mother did. My mother was a wife, a mother, and still had time to take us everywhere we needed to do, and had a successful career. So can we talk about that for a second? Because I know you have seen that, and you have managed to balance that very well, because we talked about it briefly the other day, but I know a lot of women who suffer with that. If you're too strong, then we get labeled that, oh, she's that, the name they call
That
us.
beaver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's that, oh, here, she can't handle it. So can we talk about that for a minute for the sisters in the chat?
Yeah, because I get called the B word all the time, but I don't care, right? And so with that in mind, I tell people what I do is I build my village. So those are other women like me that support me. They check on you. They say, are you okay? And okay doesn't mean are you physically sick? Sometimes you may be mentally just stressed or strained, and people can see that, and you may just need a break, right? And so those are the little cues. I have women within my village that we pray for each other. We take a break together and say, let's just go have brunch today. Even at work, when I worked in city government, I had a coworker that was a peer, and we used to, on a rainy day, we would have this one spot we went to have comfort. They had this soup and bread that we loved, and it was comfort food for us. So it's just little things like that. And then don't be scared to take the break. Even when I got here in DC, at first I was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. It wasn't healthy for me. And Marcia stepped in and she was like, are you okay? She just picked up the phone and called, and I wasn't okay. And since then, I've learned how to create that work balance life, and it'll come in, it'll bob and weave. But if you have kids, a husband, job, people, directors calling you at 9 o'clock at night, create an environment for yourself that works for you. And everybody is going to be different. Like, it doesn't bother me if you call me at 9 o'clock at night, but if I had a husband and kids, it may, right? And so create a healthy environment and create those boundaries that work for you and your family. And but at the end of the day, don't use husband and kids as an excuse. Still do your job, like get the job done. And then create that village that when you're slipping or whatever, or don't look healthy, don't feel healthy, that somebody steps in to help you out.
Gotcha. So we're gonna switch it a little bit and go back, and we're gonna talk about your appointment as chief of staff to the mayor, of Mayor Stodola, in Little Rock. So how did that even come about? How did that come about, and what was that time period for you in your life at that time? And how did you become the first woman ever to be chief of staff in Little Rock?
And first African American. So actually, as you might tell from the name, Stola is actually a white mayor, originally from Iowa. He looks just like it, a white man from Iowa, right? But again, he saw me doing my job and my skill set, and he needed somebody logistically strong to really organize his office, because he was all over the place. Like, some of you guys have department directors or city managers or whatever, they don't look organized. You walk in their offices, crap everywhere. So, and then every day I wore a suit, right? So my signature item is always my necklace, for those of you who don't know me. And so he would even pay attention to, oh, she has a different necklace on every day. And my logistical skills were, like I said, tight, because I had done advanced for so long. So advanced, for those of you who are on the call that don't know what that is when either the president, vice president, former president, or president or spouse actually have security detail as it relates to Secret Service. And so what happens is you get a call as an advance lead and say, Mrs. Obama is going to Africa. Can you advance the trip? And so you get down, like if she's in state or he is in state, you do a week prior to their arrival. When you're going on an international trip, most of the time you're there a couple of weeks before the person's arrival. And so you do every single logistic you can think of. So I was a site person. Sometimes I did press, but most times not. So you say, what, how do they get off the plane? Where are the vans? How many staff vans do you need? How are you moving the luggage from one place to the next? If they get off the plane and they're coming in hot, like they're going straight to an event, they're not going to the hotel first. What happens to that luggage? How do you get the luggage to the hotel, and who's doing that while you're at the site? When you build out the site, it's the kind of podium, Ms. Obama's almost 6 feet tall. So she puts on a pump, she's 6'2", 6'3". She can't have a regular size podium. So how do I lift up the podium? The lighting, she's chocolate. She's a chocolate sister like me. So make sure the lighting is right and it can capture who she really is. Printing the speech, putting it in the binder. So if the teleprompter goes out, then they still have a copy of the speech. The pages are in the top right-hand corner, so she knows what page to go to if the teleprompter goes out. Is she eating? If she's sitting at a table at a lunch, who's all at the table? Do you have headshots and bios of them? Does everybody at the table speak English? If they don't, who's the translator on her right or her left, depending on how many languages are on her right or on the left? So all the little bitty movements, the photo line, you got to vet the photo line. So when you think about it like that, that is every single movement that somebody is doing. Can you TikTok that out? And can you put that checklist together to say, okay, done, right? And so my skill set is logistics. And so a lot of things that I learned about conference planning was at CPAC. And so now when I plan my ALMA conference every year, then I already have my TikToks ready. So if VP Harris is saying, okay, what time am I supposed to be up to speak? I can send her to run a show, and every minute is accounted for. So she knows when to roll in and what time she's going to be able to roll out, if she's going to do a photo line, all of that, right? So those are, that's how I got to where I was as the mayor's chief of staff. And I'm from the city of Little Rock. So he knew that what he brought to the table was the white business community, but what I brought to the table was the Black community as a whole, because my mom had worked in government, like I told you, all those years. And so people knew our family name, and they knew me. I looked just like her. And so they would call the office and be like, Phyllis, can you see if the mayor can do such and such and such and such? And they were comfortable picking up the phone, talking to me. I would make him come to the Black church every year, at least twice a year. The largest Black church is where I go. And he would come in and he knew the Black man, I call it the Black man handshake. He knew every word to lift every voice and sing. All the things that we take for granted, he was able to master.
Oh, that's awesome. So I know I can, I'm glad I was sitting up here laughing, because I was like, well, I couldn't, if I was your child, I couldn't get nothing past you. You would.
My roommate for college says that. She's like, girl, you don't miss a thing. I said, scripture says, watch and pray. You got to do both, okay?
I told y'all she's awesome. I mean, to be able to have done all of those things for the Clinton administration, the Obama administration, working now with Ms. Kamala Harris and the Mayor Stola at the time you've done it, you are phenomenal. And so with all of those things and those logistics, how are you balancing life? How do you maintain the successful career you have and balance life at the same time?
It has been difficult at the CEO level because I came in and I inherited a team that was already in place. And sometimes when you go to a new organization, understand they may have hired the team they can afford instead of the team they actually want. And so many of them left, which was perfect because then I was able to hire, and they're great people and have great skill set, but they may not have been the person for the position, or they have been here so long, they just needed to go to another position and learn the lesson there. I tell people, wherever you are, learn the lesson so that you won't have to repeat the class again. So I hired a whole new team. And then I had a whole set of consultants. And so just balancing consultants that work remotely and then a team that's in-house, it's a lot. But what my best practice is, I don't like to be behind on emails. And so what I do is I actually, by the end of the night, I make sure I've gone through all my emails. But if for any reason I'm so exhausted that I can't do it, I don't beat myself up. So I may spend an hour on a Saturday now, or maybe 2 hour window, no more than 2 hours, making sure I go through all my emails so that I'm not behind on Sunday. Sunday, do the same thing after church. And then Monday, I'm ready to go. Because I get about 200 emails a day.
So you just make sure that's your system. You make sure that you stay with everything else. You got to make sure your emails stay above, but you have some personal time in there too, right? You take time for
right. Even if I live downtown DC, so even if I take a walk and just go in the Zara store, just to get a fresh walk in. I can't go outside much right now because the cherry blossoms are in full bloom. When I tell you I'm allergic to the cherry blossoms, I'm allergic to the cherry blossoms.
Same in Dallas, it's allergy season, so I totally understand. So what advice would you give women, especially young women who are coming into their careers and women who are in transition, trying to figure out, where they need to plant their feet? What advice would you give to them, especially, and I also want to add part two of that, especially those women who may be experiencing imposter syndrome. For those who don't know what imposter syndrome is, when you go into an organization and you feel like, you are they treat you like you're on the bottom pole, on the bottom pole, totem pole, even with all of your skill sets and degrees and experiences. Sometimes you can go into a new organization and it's not receptive, or they may put you in a position or treat you as if you're not already aware. So what advice would you give women who are beginning their careers or in transition or experiencing that imposter syndrome?
So when we talked about this question the other day, I wrote myself some notes just so I wouldn't forget some of my lessons learned. So I tell people, one, keep your resume ready. So you don't ever know where you're going to go next, and it could be a quick move. And don't be so worried about what skills people don't think you have or possess, because they're always teachable moments, right? Even when it's a city manager, I laugh at Bruce. I think one of my funniest Bruce stories is we had a reception at work and I made frappe. And Bruce had never seen frappe before. And he said, "What is that?" I said, "It's frappe. Did you not have that at church growing up?" And he was like, "No." And I said, "It's ice cream, sherbet ice cream, and ginger ale. Like, for real? Like, everybody had frappe, right?" And so don't think they know just because they're in some high level position, because they may not. No, I remember having to teach my mayor. He asked me, it was New Year's Eve. We're getting ready for New Year's Eve. And he asked me what I was going to do for New Year's Eve. He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to watch night service." He was like, "What is that?" And so I had to explain watch night service with him. So you bring valuable information to the table. Just because somebody's in a position doesn't mean that they actually know. Your culture, your life experiences, don't take any of that for granted. It is there for a reason, and don't be scared to use it. So some of the advice I give young people: one, keep your resume ready. Two, get your wardrobe in order. And I know that a lot of you guys are in your first career and you may not have your wardrobe intact yet. I tell people about outfits and not pieces. And so it is a full outfit, because if not, you'll look up and you'll have a whole lot of pieces in your closet, and your closet will look like a TJ Maxx or Marshalls, and nothing will make sense to you. If you buy outfits, it's much easier when you need to pack and go to a conference and all those things. Find out what your signature item is. So for me, everybody always looks for my necklace. They want to see what kind of necklace I'm wearing. Some people, it's their glasses. Other people, it's their nail polish. Like whatever that thing is. I learned that from Earl Graves, the former owner of Black Enterprise. He was all about, his signature thing was his beard, right? And his, not actually his beard, his sideburns. And so everybody couldn't wait to see his side. That's the first thing they looked at when they saw him. For men on the call, sometimes it could be your socks, your cufflinks, your bow tie, necktie, whatever it is you're wearing. Find that signature thing. I tell people, make sure your passport and your suitcase is ready to go at all times. If you do not have a passport, I suggest that's the first thing you get. Only because I told the group the other day when we talked that my first trip to Africa was with Mrs. Obama. I spent 2 weeks in Africa preparing for her trip and then bringing her in. And so little did I know it was on my bucket list, but little did I know that I was going with her. And so they don't have time on the Vans call to say, Phyllis, do you already have a passport? No, you need to have your passport and your luggage ready, because when they call you, they assume you have it all in order. And like I said, I came to city government December 5th, 2005. January 2006, Bruce was asking me to go to Tallahassee. I couldn't say, well, I don't have luggage. What? So those are the kind of things that you need to think about. Make sure you get a good mentor or somebody that's a good friend that's not scared to tell you the truth. All right. And then trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense. So fashion didn't necessarily go with city government. City government didn't necessarily go with being a CEO. But now that I'm here, it all makes sense. So all the mayors that I met when I was traveling with my mayor as the chief of staff, when I interviewed for the job, 4 of the 6 people on the selection committee had to say, full disclosure, I already know Phyllis. 4 of the 6. And the 2 that didn't know me, they felt bad that they didn't know me and said, well, I don't know Phyllis yet, but I want to get to know her. Because they felt bad that they didn't already know who I was, right? And then I asked my employees this question, because most of my employees are 30 and under that are in-house. And so I asked them, what do they wish they would have known or they have learned since they've worked for me? And they said negotiating skills for your salary and your benefits, and ask about a growth track. And like, in other words, in 2 years, where, what is my track to move to that next level? And then the other thing is that people are not disposable. Every person that you connect with has a value to either where you are now or where you're going later. So that's when I talked about that Rolodex. And then keep your Rolodex tight and ready. And then I'll end with Kwame Kilpatrick's quote that he said during that session that we had with him on ethics. He said, your skill can take you where your character cannot keep you. So keep your character in check so people will know, because sometimes you're left with millions of dollars to make a decision about. If you can't manage your own finances, nobody's gonna want you to manage, millions of dollars in a budget.
That part, man. Right. So let's go back over this list one more time. You said keep your wardrobe together, keep your wardrobe tight.
Get your resume.
Get your resume together. Keep your wardrobe tight. Get your passport. That should be the first.
Suitcase.
Get some good luggage. My grandmother used to say that. You know you from the South. Keep you some good luggage.
Get you a mentor.
Get you a mentor. And what was the last?
like learn how to negotiate your salary and your benefits, that kind of thing. Because sometimes your benefits can outweigh your salary. And then make them put together you a growth track. And then keep your Rolodex tight. Like everybody you meet serves a purpose, either now or later. And so keep that information because you never know when you're going to need it. And then the ethics piece that I tell people is Kwame's quote, "It will never leave me, but your skill can take you where your character cannot keep you." And so the reason Kwame said that was because when Kwame was 6 years old, people used to ask him, what are you going to be when you grow up? He said, "I'm going to be the mayor of Detroit City." And guess what? He became mayor. Right? And so, but his character wasn't right.
But you made it though. He can say, but
so it's not just your skills, but your character also.
Your character got to be right. I told y'all she was awesome. I told Miss Phyllis, I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough for all the jewels you have dropped. And I don't want to hold up by taking up all your time and not letting the people in the that has joined the chat this morning drop their questions. So if there are any questions right now, we're going to open it up for questions to Miss Phyllis. Please drop them in the chat. People are already in the chat quoting you.
I do see one question that says, "I want to know more about your work and how you maneuvered through challenges." You guys, I think for me, you got to get fired one time. And I tell people this all the time and they look at me like I'm crazy. But once you get fired, you're not ever scared to be fired again, because you walk in like, whatever, what's the worst that can happen? They're going to fire me? Oh, well. And so when people know, because a lot of times, especially in municipal government, that's always the threat for them. But when you take away that power of that threat, you're like, what they gonna do? Fire me? I don't care. And when people know that you don't care like that, you operate differently, because you can go get another job anytime. And so that was a challenge of thinking, like other city government employees. Like when I was at City Hall, it was so funny. I remember when I became the mayor's chief of staff, a city council member told the mayor I was the worst decision he ever made. It's like, whatever, rolled off me, right? One of the city employees had the community punishment people come put broken furniture in my office for my arrival. I was like, is that all they got? So literally within 2 weeks, a whole new set of furniture came down the hallway, and nobody in City Hall had ever ordered new furniture. And I ordered a whole office of furniture. So I always was that employee. So what they gonna do, fire me? And is there another question, Todd?
Yes, there are a couple of more questions. There is a question that says, what guidance do you have for people finding mentors?
Sometimes, sometimes we think that the mentor has to be in city government, and it doesn't have to be in your local city government. It can be somebody that that's in a whole different arena than what you think, because what you need is a sounding board and somebody to give you good advice, not bad advice, but good advice. I remember we used to do a thing, Marcia will attribute to this. We used to do a thing called Sisters on the Move and Brothers on the Move. And in the session, we had these women that would sit up and answer questions from young leaders like you guys. And so we had a conversation about attire. And this young lady said she wanted to express herself by getting, I can't remember if it was green hair or something. That was back when nobody wore green hair to city government. And so she asked me the question, like, how do I deal with that? And I said, well, I kind of had the same situation at City Hall. I bought a pair of 7 jeans, and the city manager, we were in a meeting, and he said, you need to be careful not wearing, he said it to everybody, you need to be careful not wearing faded jeans to work. So everybody at the table looked around and said, what are you talking about? Who is he talking about? We were like, we don't know. So a couple weeks later, I wore my 7 jeans again. And he came in my office and he said, Phyllis, I asked you not to wear faded jeans. I said, I don't have on faded jeans. I have on stonewashed. The mayor has on faded jeans. Now, do you not want people to wear faded jeans or stonewashed jeans? He didn't have an answer because he didn't know the difference between washes, right? And he said, well, they edify your behind. I said, I'm a size, at the time I was a size 2. I said, are you really sitting here in my office telling me that they edify my size 2 behind? He didn't have a word to say and he got up and walked out the door. So, so sometimes you just need somebody to bounce stuff off of if you're one of those people that's not quick off the cuff. My roommate from college tells me I'm quick off the cuff, but so just have somebody that gives you good sound advice. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody in your same gender. It can be somebody that is, the opposite sex that just gives you good advice.
That's good. So one more question for you. So with current events that are going on in our government with diversity laws that are trying to get abolished, with the democracy, challenges we're having. There's a bill right now that's getting passed around. It's called in Texas. Well, it's not only in Texas, it's in Florida as well, the Education Bill 999 that is trying to get passed to prevent diversity programming in educational institutions as well as in government, preventing students from majoring in anything that promotes diversity. And with women already being the minority, Black women at that being the minority in the workplace, what advice would you give to those to women who are being faced with these with challenges in the workplace, and with us as a whole, as an African American community as a whole, with our democracy being threatened every day? What steps should we take as a whole to ensure that all the work that our ancestors put forth do not be erased? I know affirmative action is already is diminishing. What how can we still fight and keep and maintain our presence in government as a strong force? What advice would you give to that?
So one, I think don't get frustrated in the journey, and it is a journey, right? Because in this next election cycle, you're going to see some stuff come out that you have never, ever seen before. So one, you kind of talked about education. So what's happening now on the ground in state legislature sessions, they're trying to take over school districts from mayors that actually run their school districts. 2, they're trying to, in Jackson, Mississippi, they're taking over the water system. In Kansas City and in St. Louis, they're giving more, I guess I would say, jurisdictional duties to their police departments so that they supersede local police departments, or i.e. they're trying to take over municipal police departments. You're going to see in Little Rock, they tried to pass legislation that if they had an open position on the airport commission, which is the highest profile commission that a mayor can make an appointment to, there are only 7 seats. And the mayor had not filled the position. And so what they wanted to do, they tried to pass legislation that says, if an airport position is open, and the mayor doesn't fill it within 45 days, the governor then has the right to fill the position. So there are going to be a lot of things on the table this year. So one, don't get frustrated and be ready to fight. Like municipalities, for those who are attorneys working in city attorneys' offices and that kind of thing, there are going to be a lot of lawsuits and a lot of blows this year, because you're going to see governors try their best to take over jurisdictional duties from local government. And so it's not just going to be about abortion, it's going to be everything that they feel is important or has a big enough budget, they're going to try to take.
Oh, wow. And so what more can we do on the grounds to, I mean, I know voting is one thing, but voting, is only a small portion. What more can we do as leaders in municipalities and education? There are so many people on here with different careers and backgrounds. What can we do to keep those stigmas and those laws from getting passed and happening?
Right. So I think collaboration has power. To give you an example, just the other day on equity as it relates to broadband, we pulled together one of the cable companies and NFBPA and National League of Cities into a conversation. So cross over into some of the other organizations to leverage your voice to your state legislators and that kind of thing, since they're meeting right now. And don't be scared. Understand, make sure you understand what the issue is, and don't just fight for that one thing. Bring it all together to make it make sense to them, and show them, like, if local government started to take over responsibilities and those kinds of in state government, you wouldn't have it. So why are you trying to do the opposite with us? So there's a reason that we have federal government, state government, local government, and county government, because we have boundaries and jurisdiction, and there's a reason why it comes under that umbrella. And so leverage your voices that way. For those of you who are in Greek organizations, civic organizations, whatever, don't be scared to call a meeting with your state legislator. And know who they are. A lot of people, I ask people all the time, people don't know who the mayor is, they don't know who state legislator is, they don't even know. So figure out who the players are at the table, and leverage your voice that way.
Thank you, Miss Phyllis. And someone asked, do you have a book? Or are you writing your book yet?
I did learn from Oprah. I do journal every night.
You journal, but you don't have a book yet. Okay, no worries. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, that's practice I didn't share with you guys. You never know when there's a book in you, but so I journal every night just to sometimes think back. When you get frustrated, it's always good to pull out the book and think back what God has already done for you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So thank you, Miss Phyllis. It has been a true pleasure speaking with you today. I have learned so much. I'm sure everyone in this chat has learned a lot. It's not every day you get a chance to speak to someone like Miss Phyllis Dickerson. So I am truly honored. Thank you so much. I have a few announcements for those who are in the chat. If you have not registered for forum yet, it looks like there was an incentive today for those who were the first two to drop a question in the chat. I know Roberto and Simone are on. So whomever those first two people were, you get free registration to forum today if you have not already registered. Forum will be in Minneapolis, Minnesota this year, April 26th through the 30th. Miss Phyllis will be in attendance. So if you would like to see her and learn more about what she does, she will be there. Also, there is a group sale going on for forum. If you can get 5 people together, the total cost for registration collectively will be $575. There is also the emerging leaders discount today. I'm sorry, is $575 per person, or is it $575 as a group? Can you confirm that? Per person. Okay, I was about to say, okay, $575 per person. The emerging leaders discounted rate is also at $575. If you are under 40, you can go to forum if you have not registered yet for $575. Also, is there anything else? No. Oh, yes, there is one more. So if you are a non-member and you would like to be join NFBPA today. You can join today for and pay for your form registration fee for $7.98. So that covers 1 year of membership along with registration to forum for a total of $7.98. Now that does not cover your flight. It doesn't cover your hotel, but that covers your registration and your membership for 1 year. For those who do not know, this is the National Forum for the Black Public Administrators. And we, excellent group, we are celebrating 40 years of excellence. So this year will be a phenomenal conference, and I cannot wait to attend. For those who are emerging leaders, don't forget that we will have our chat cafe at forum session on Friday the 28th from 11:45 to 1 p.m. And that's about it. Am I leaving anything out, Marcia and Simone? We good? We good. So thank you all for joining in today. And Miss Phyllis, thank you for taking time out to chat with us. And it has, again, been an honor. It's been a privilege. And I look forward to seeing you at Forum.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day.